Zhou and I have been a grudge couple for 20 years. The time the quarrel was the most violent, he grabbed my neck and asked me why the candidate for marriage became Jianglingi, and why the person who died was not me. I smiled and said that he was incompetent, and that he couldn't protect Jianglingi. For many years, we know each other best and poke each other's sore spots. But on the day of the rebellion, Zhou tried his best to protect me, but he was shot several times in the chest and died in my arms. At the end of his life, he wiped away his tears for me and looked relieved. "Don't cry, I'm really tired after so many years. If there is an afterlife, let's let each other go, I want to find her." He opened his eyes again and returned to the day when Nanzhao asked for peace. I no longer forced myself to ask for peace. This time, I decided to fulfill Zhou. 1. Huayin, have you chosen your husband? Could it be that you still insist on marrying Zhou? The father's voice echoed in the palace. The tingling pain in my knees suddenly dragged me back to reality. I lowered my head. My son volunteered to marry Nanzhao. Nanzhao Guishu asked to marry a princess, and the only people of the right age were me and Jianglingi. My father wanted me to choose a son-in-law in Beijing, but at that time, I could only tolerate Zhou in my eyes. Taking the heavy imperial edict with both hands, I bowed deeply again, turned around, and walked out of the Golden One Hall. Outside the hall, the drizzle was weaving. Zhou figure was still waiting at the bottom of the steps, his clothes wet. Seeing the moisture all over his body, I subconsciously wanted to raise my hand to brush it away. But he avoided it sideways, his eyes touching the bright yellow scroll in my hand, and his face changed suddenly. He suddenly lifted the hem of his clothes and knelt in the rain, his voice full of eagerness. "Your Highness, please take back your life. The seventh princess has a stubborn temperament and is by no means a choice for marriage." Looking at the familiar handsome side face, my throat was sore, and I forced myself down. "Zhou, you actually knelt down to me for her." He leaned lower and his forehead rested on the cold stone steps. "I don't dare. It's just that the seventh princess has been weak since childhood. If she marries Nanzhao far away, if she goes, will she die?" I suddenly laughed out loud, my voice with a hint of hoarseness. "Then do you think I'm suitable?" Zhou raised his head suddenly. "I have no intention of doing so. I just want to find a way to get the best of both worlds. I am willing to ask for orders to go on an expedition and repel Nanzhao. I know what he's thinking. In his opinion, I died because my mother gave birth to her, and I hated Jianglingi. At this moment, I will definitely fall into the trap." He was dark at the moment, obviously because he couldn't sleep for several nights because of this marriage. If it had been in the past, I would have taken the opportunity to throw myself into his arms and ask him to agree to accompany me. But at this moment, I only feel physically and mentally exhausted. I withdrew my gaze and said in an indifferent tone, "I will respond to you. Jianglingi will not make peace." Zhou was relieved, and when he got up, he finally noticed the haggardness on my face. He subconsciously took out the handkerchief and wanted to wipe it for me, but I avoided it. His hands froze in mid-air. I smiled and handed him the imperial edict. He was about to unfold it when I held it down. "Look at it again after half a month." I looked at him deeply for a moment, straightened my back and turned to leave. "Your Highness." He grabbed my wrist and said with the eagerness of a promise, "You don't need to worry, I will marry you." Tears from the corners of his eyes slipped silently. Marry him? What's the point? What he loves in his heart is not me after all. Over the years, I have watched how he has gradually sunk from a high-spirited teenager to a gloomy minister. He talked and laughed, but because of Jianglingi's death, he never showed his joy again. It wasn't until I died once that I finally realized it. Some love is destined to not seek good results. This time, I fulfill him. 2. I walked for a long time and finally climbed to the top of the bell tower that my father built for my mother. The Queen Mother loved her father deeply and loved her to the point of heartbreak. She died in childbirth, but it was not just dystocia. Her father loved her, but since she left, the harem has never been vacant. And what about me? Bound Zhou Yan for 1 or 2 decades with so-called love, and finally ended up losing both. The wind tugged at my skirt. I was alone and waited until dusk came. Footsteps sounded behind him. When Zhou Yan saw me sitting on the edge of danger, his face turned pale instantly. "Your Highness. What are you doing?" I met his gaze and smiled lightly. "It's nothing, just look at the scenery. From here, you can overlook the entire imperial city, and for me, there are only a handful of opportunities." Zhou Yan breathed a sigh of relief, took a few steps, and grabbed my wrist tightly. "Don't worry me, don't come here alone." His tone was concerned. I was silent. He has always been like this, even if he doesn't love, he treats me well with habit and responsibility. But what I long for is his heartfelt affection. As long as he is willing to take a closer look at me at this moment, he can find that what is stuck in my bun is the hairpin that Nanzhao asked for. However, he did not. Zhou Yan handed me a wooden box. "Your birthday gift." I looked at him. "My birthday is still some days away. I'm afraid I'll forget the complicated affairs later," he explained, "so that you don't annoy me again." Listening to his words, I stopped answering. He seemed to notice my strangeness, and lowered his voice even lower. "Huayin, you and I are going to get married. Since I have fulfilled your wish to marry you, I can't ignore the safety of the 7th princess." Before he finished speaking, my heart had fallen. You should know how tragic the fate of the princess of the previous dynasty was, and I must not let her follow in her footsteps. His words are sincere. I suddenly had some expectations. What kind of expression would he have if he knew that the person who married Nanzhao was me? Zhou Yan was still gently persuading me. "The 7th princess is your only sister from now on. You let her do everything." I clenched my hand in my sleeve, and my heart felt a sharp tingle. Taking a deep breath, I replied, "Okay, I'll give it all to her. Along with you, I will give it to her as well." 3. The next morning, Zhou Yan said that he wanted to take me out to relax. I had no mind and rejected him directly. He didn't say much, but at noon he sent someone to deliver my favorite lanterns. This was almost a silent agreement between us, and whenever I was in a depressed mood, he would give me lanterns and invite me to swim in the lake. Looking at the lanterns, I finally went to the appointment. However, halfway through, he heard a passing eunuch palace maid whispering, "Have you heard? The 7th princess just tripped slightly, and Prince Zhou was so nervous that he was crazy." No, the two of them saw that good things were coming. No, they went to the lake together. Their discussion made me look dazed. The most difficult days of the death of my mother were spent with me by Zhou Yan. At that time, I knew that my mother fell out of favor with my father and ended up depressed, so I stubbornly asked Zhou Yan to prove that I was the only one to him. He once solemnly promised to swim in the lake with me alone. When I got to the lake, the scene in front of me stung me. Jiangling sat next to Zhou Yan. Her posture was intimate. Zhou Yan looked up and saw me, and his expression was obviously panicked. Jiangling said with a smile, "Sister is here. My father asked me to prepare for the marriage, and it seems that I am the one who will marry after all. Sister, can you get your wish?" Zhou Yan's eyes instantly cooled down, and he asked me sternly, "You clearly promised not to embarrass Lingy to make peace." "I said I would marry you, what else are you not satisfied with?" Jiangling's eyes were also red, and she took a step forward. "Sister, I am willing to take on the responsibility of marriage, but I was really reluctant to let go of the prince, so I came to say goodbye." "Sister, don't be angry, please give me some time to slow down, okay?" she said, tears falling down. Zhou Yan's voice was full of disappointment. "Jiang Huayin, do you have to force Lingy to death? When did you become so cold-blooded and ruthless?" I looked at him and felt unfamiliar. "What about you? Are you still the same as Zhou Yan in the past?" He sneered, showing his exhaustion. "Enough. You always have your reason. Since you don't want to do something for Lingy, then I'll go." I will definitely stop her from making peace. Jianglingyi's face turned pale when she heard this, and tears welled up like a spring. The prince can't. If you do this, you are disobeying the order. She cried directly and fainted in Zhou Yenny's arms, and a hint of sneer flashed in my eyes. Seeing that I was indifferent, Zhou Yenny suddenly grabbed my wrist. Your sister fainted with fear. Do you still have the mind to swim in the lake? If she really has 3 strengths and 2 shorts, I don't think our marriage contract will have to be counted. I closed my eyes. When I opened it again, my eyes were as cold as ice. Let go. My voice was calm and unwavering. The blue veins on his forehead burst out. Jiang Huayin. Do you just want to watch her die? I promised your mother that she would protect you, but it doesn't mean that I can condone you to hurt Ling Yi again and again. The more he spoke, the more excited he became, as if he had returned to the scene of our countless fierce quarrels in his previous life. I said in a flat tone, I've grown up, I don't need you to protect me, you can protect her. As if thinking of something, Zhou Yenny lowered his head and said in a deep voice, I'm sorry. Your Majesty thinks of you everywhere but Your Highness the 7th. In this world, the only person she can rely on is me. I tried to calm down and turned around to return to the palace. At this moment, Jianglingyi, who woke up leisurely, also followed me into my carriage. The carriage had just driven out not far when a sudden change occurred. Several sharp arrows broke through the air. My heart sank. It's not good. Someone must want to destroy the marriage and assassinate the princess. The guards drew their swords to meet the enemy, but were killed by the assassins one by one. Jianglingyi was so frightened that her face turned pale. Zhou Yenny reacted very quickly and immediately turned over into the carriage. Seeing this, Jianglingyi immediately threw herself into his arms and held on tightly. Zhou Yan consciously protected her in his arms, and then said to me urgently, Your Highness's guards are very skilled. I will send the 7th princess out of danger first, and come back to save you immediately. Before he finished speaking, he had already jumped out of the carriage with Jianglingyi in his arms. At this moment, a cold arrow with a strong wind pierced my chest. The severe pain swept through my body in an instant, and I burst into tears out of control. The last moment before his vision completely fell into darkness, it was Zhou Yenny holding Jianglingyi and disappearing into the chaotic smoke and dust without looking back. 4. I struggled to lift my heavy eyelids, and my blurred gaze gradually focused, recognizing that it was a familiar palace. The imperial doctor said that it was okay too. The arrow was a little off. Zhou Yenny stood by the bed, his eyes dark blue. In order to find the medicinal materials to heal my arrow wounds as soon as possible, he ran to the death of 2 fast horses day and night. At this moment, he carefully handed the medicine bowl to my lips. The juice slipped into my throat, but it couldn't warm my silent heart. The palace maid outside the palace reported in a low voice, Prince Zhou, Your Majesty has a request. Zhou Yenny carefully tucked the corner of the quilt for me, and said softly, Rest in peace, I'll go back when I go. I opened my mouth and finally just lowered my eyes and swallowed all the words back. When he returned, his steps staggered and floated, with a cold air that had not dissipated. Sure enough, he was still punished by his father. Go pass on the imperial doctor, I said hoarsely. But he interrupted me suddenly. His eyes were red. Your Highness. Your Majesty. Your Majesty blamed her for all the crimes of your assassination, because the 7th princess left the palace without permission. Threatened to be severely punished. I tugged at the corners of my mouth. You want me to intercede for her? Don't you know your father's temper? When will he be allowed to talk about what he decides? Zhou Yan was stunned for a moment, and then knelt down. As long as you are willing to speak, even if it's just a light sentence. Your Majesty will be soft-hearted. The 7th princess. She was just a little playful, she had no bad intentions, and she didn't mean to implicate Her Highness here. He knelt down for Jianglingyi again. He knows that I hate him saluting me the most. I swept my gaze over the slender scar at the corner of his right face. It was when I was 15 years old. I fell from a tall tree for fun, and he rushed to the rescue, leaving a mark left by the rubble. He once gave up his life for me. But what if it was Jianglingi who fell from the tree that day? What if she was in danger? The answer is about to come out. A heavy sour taste surged in the nasal cavity, and the vision was slightly blurred. I looked at him, my voice as light as a gust of wind that would disperse at any time. Zhou and I, thank you for your. Back then. You saved me like that without regard for your life. Since my mother left. It's been a long, long time, and I haven't felt the warmth of that, being protected by people doing everything they can to protect them. I know. Over the years, my persistence, my compulsion, must have made you very tired and embarrassed, right? My eyes fell on his still red eyes and pursed lips. Actually, I'm tired too. I don't want to fight anymore. In the future, never again. I'm leaving this place forever soon. Zhou Yanni's lips moved, and he wanted to say something. Suddenly, a guard hurried over outside the hall, and whispered hurriedly in his ear. The words "seventh princess" clearly floated into my ears. It must have been Jianglingi who learned that he was being punished, and was anxiously looking for him. Zhou Yan's eyes flashed with apology, and he spoke very quickly, "Your Highness, Minister. I have something urgent, I will come to see you later." He didn't even have time to wait for me to respond, so he got up suddenly, and although his steps were staggering, he hurried towards the outside of the palace without looking back. That direction is the road to Jianglingi's palace. 5. After being able to walk on the ground, the first thing I did was to put all the things that to superscript 2 Zhou Yanni gave me over the years, and put them all into the burning charcoal stove. The tongue of fire licked greedily, and the blazing flames jumped and burned under my eyes. I stood quietly, watching what I once cherished twist and curl up in the flames, and finally turn into pieces of flying ash, just like all my remaining thoughts about him. In the ashes, Zhou Yanni stepped into the hall. My body is not good yet, why is it burning so strongly? He frowned, his tone was habitually concerned, and his eyes swept over the fire. I just feel cold. My voice was as light as a sigh, and I turned around and walked towards the embroidery rack. The shelves are lined with bright red wedding dresses. According to custom, the bride needs to complete the last few stitches with her own hands in order to pray for a happy life. I picked up the gold brocade left to me by my mother, and prepared to use it to add the final touch to the wedding dress. As soon as Zhou Yan approached, when he saw the wedding dress, his expression seemed to soften. The wedding date is still early, why be so anxious? The word wedding date is like a thin needle, and it suddenly plunges into my heart. The fingertips hurt suddenly, and the crimson blood beads instantly bloomed a dazzling dark flower on the wedding dress. What is too early? 10 days later, I will embark on the road to Nanzhao. Seeing this, Mama Lu pounced on her with an exclamation, her trembling hands touched the blood, and her old tears flowed. Princess. Blood-stained wedding dress. It's an ominous sign. Her voice was choked and hoarse, the mountains are high and the waters are far away. How can this be good? I raised my head suddenly, bit my lower lip, and forced the surging sourness out of my eyes. Marry far away in a foreign country, and leave your homeland forever. Don't be afraid, it's fake. Pressing down on the choking in my throat, I tried to make my voice seem smooth, and comforted Mama Lu, who was crying silently. Grandma can rest assured, I have my own royal luck to protect my body, and I will definitely safe. For some reason, Zhou Yanni heard the crying, and the wetness flashed in his eyes. He stared at me in a low and solemn voice, Your Highness, don't worry. I'll go find the best embroiderer and make a brand new wedding dress for His Highness, so that His Highness can marry beautifully. He seemed to decide that the imperial decree was my marriage to him. Mixed emotions flashed in my eyes and my tone was cold, no need. Zhou Yanni was silent for a moment, with a gesture of trying to make amends, and said in a deep voice, Last time I was assassinated, I failed to protect His Highness, and it was my fault. Your Highness. Don't be angry anymore. I raised my eyes and asked softly, So you're actually not afraid that I'm really going to die, right? His expression suddenly froze, as if he was stabbed by these words, and said urgently, "Your Highness, why did you say this? How can I not be afraid? I swear that I will never let your Highness fall into such a dangerous situation again." I asked again, "What if one day I will leave here forever, leave you, and go to a place where you can't find it?" Zhou Yanni's brows suddenly furrowed, a trace of panic flashed in his eyes, and he hurriedly interrupted me, "Your Highness. What do you mean? What do you mean? 6. 7. 2 superscript 3. 3. I don't want to, and I don't dare to love you anymore." He couldn't hold on anymore and fell to the ground. Hot tears surged out silently, blurring everything in front of them. My mind is full of the past. The arrogant little princess at the age of 5 hid behind the queen, and secretly looked at him, playfully sticking out her tongue, and making a face at him. When she was 8 years old, she clumsily bandaged him, and wrapped him like a can-move rice dumpling, but wrinkled her nose and argued, "You are too fat." At the age of 15, he caught her steadily from the tree. She put her arms around his neck and said with a smile, "Zhou Yanni, I want to marry you. Then I won't be a princess anymore. I will be with you forever." "Why?" "Because you can protect me. Zhou Yanni, you have to protect me like this in the future. Otherwise, I don't want you anymore." Sure enough, she didn't want him anymore. Zhou Yanni choked and raised his head, his eyes revealing helplessness. The one who can't see his heart clearly is him. Ho! A roar of extreme pain pierced through his throat. His head began to ache violently, and some broken images flashed before his eyes. 8. The red candle was feverish, reflecting a warm red in the sleeping quarters. The cumbersome Nanzhao etiquette finally ended, and the hustle and bustle receded, leaving only the whispering of the wind and snow outside the window. The sound of heavy footsteps came from far to near, and the hijab was lifted, and I raised my eyes and crashed into a pair of deep eagle eyes. Halianyi's tall figure almost blocked the candlelight. "Fifth princess, you've been waiting for a long time." The tension in my heart was inexplicably relaxed, and I tried to raise a gentle smile and met his gaze. "Just call me by name, Jiang Huayin." He sat down as he was told, his broad shoulders almost next to me. Nanzhao's cup of wine vessels was a rough silver cup, and he picked up one of the glasses and handed it to me. His movements were slightly jerky. My arms were intertwined, and as I drank the spicy but warm wine, I felt the tightness of his arm muscles. Putting down the wine glass, he was silent for a moment, and his eagle eyes fell on my face, as if he was considering the words. "I know," he spoke again, his voice lower and hoarse than before, with an almost clumsy thoughtfulness. "You squeamish Central Plains people are not adapted to the climate here. The wind is hard, the snow is cold, and the food is rough." He paused as if he had made up his mind, before he continued, "But tell me what you want. I got it for you." In the last few words, he spoke a little quickly, as if he was not used to such a straightforward flattery. This was too much in contrast to his image of decisive killing on the battlefield, and I couldn't help but reach out and gently hug his strong waist. "The king's intentions, Huayin understands." I leaned on his shoulder and said softly, "Don't worry, I will learn to love the land here and the people here, just like you. This is my mission as a princess of peace, and it is also I want to share the heart for you." I could feel his body stiffen slightly, and then slowly relaxed. A big hand with thin calluses and well-defined bones carefully climbed up the back of my hand around his waist, moving with a tentative gentleness. He didn't say anything more, just hugged me tighter into his arms. The red candles crackled, and the wind and snow outside the hall were still there, but only the breathing and heartbeat of the two gradually blended together were left in the hall. 9. Halianyi's sentence, "Tell me what you want, and I will get it for you," is not a whim. He heard from somewhere that the noble lady of the Central Plains is inseparable from the exquisite hand stove in winter. So within 2 days, appeared on my desk. A huge, brass-made hand stove that almost resembles a small brazier. The charcoal fire inside was extremely hot and steaming. The maids couldn't help but laugh, and even the corners of the old palace people's mouths, which had always been serious, twitched. Huliani himself didn't realize it, and looked at me with a bit of praise expectation. This is warm enough. Nanzhou's craftsmen beat it overnight, which is much more effective than your gadgets in the Central Plains. I looked at this stove that needed 2 maids to lift, and I couldn't laugh or cry, but my heart was warm. I took his hand, brushed my fingertips over the little red marks he might have been burned by the overseer, and said softly, "The king bothered, it's very warm, Huayin likes it very much." His ears were slightly red, and he said in a rough voice, "Just like it." I never stopped. I have more energy to learn Nanzhao language. From the initial stumbling, he can now communicate smoothly with the maids and palace maids, and even understand the content of some court discussions. I began to try to express my simple concern to Hulian in Nanzhao. "Your Majesty, the wind and snow are heavy today, let's come back and have a bowl of hot soup after discussing the matter." Every time he heard it, there was always a flash of light in his eyes, although it was just a but the speed of drinking the soup was significantly faster. And Hulian Yi's way of expressing happiness is even more straightforward. He sent people to quickly buy back the most authentic Central Plains dim sum from the towns on the border of the Jing dynasty. When the exquisite food box was delivered to me, the snacks inside had already been crumbled in the bumpy cold, and the icing and filling were mixed together, which was miserable. Hulian Yi looked at the box of dim sum paste, his thick eyebrows were furrowed, and his eagle eyes were full of frustration and displeasure, as if he had lost the battle. I couldn't bear to go against his wishes, so I scooped up a little with a small silver spoon and tasted it. My eyebrows and eyes curled. "My lord, although the appearance of this snack has changed, the taste is still there. It's the taste of my hometown, and I'm very happy." He stared at me for a long time, making sure that I wasn't comforting him, and then snorted, "Let them run faster next time." Later he didn't know what method he used, but he really let the snacks be delivered in a relatively good state. Looking at the satisfied way I tasted it in small bites, the corners of his cold and hard mouth hooked up with a hint of satisfaction. 10. By the time Zhou Yeni arrived in Nanzhao, I had already spent my first New Year here. The side hall is empty, and a chill intrudes in. Zhou Yeni stood with his back to him, his back desolate like dead wood at the end of autumn. Hearing footsteps, he turned around suddenly. In just a few months, he was completely disfigured. The eyes are dark, and the former prince's elegance is gone, like a taut string that is about to break. "Huayin." He hoarsely rushed forward, his eyes filled with drowning contrition and dying pleas, "I finally see you." I stopped a few steps away and nodded alienatedly, "Prince Zhou." He was as if he had been hit hard, and he argued with a pale face, "Don't call me that. It's me. I remember it all. I was blind and let you down. It was I who pushed you into the sedan chair of the marriage. You are my wife. 20 years of husband and wife love should not be like this. Come with me. I want to. Even if I die." "Zhou Yeni," I interrupted his confession, "your wife is Jianglingi. The imperial decree is clear. And I have fulfilled you with my departure. Now my life is in Nanzhao." "No. That's wrong." His eyes were tearing and bloodshot, "It's my blindness. I won't admit that I love you. Huayin, come back with me. We will. Again." "Zhou Yeni," I interrupted him again, the words were clear, "I don't love you anymore." With tears in his eyes, "Huayin, I deserve to die 1,000 deaths, please. Give me a chance to atone for my sins." "Enough. Zhou Yeni, let it go." I looked at him, there is no point in indulging in remorse. I found my way in Nanzhao. I love the vastness of this grassland, and I love the smiles of the people on my face. All I want in this life is for the Jing dynasty and the people of Nanzhao to suffer less war and displacement. This is my path, my choice. You go back to live your life. There is no need to have any regrets. My regret is you. He roared, just watching you leave me. I just couldn't catch you. Huayin. Give me another chance. Just once. His hoarse reply echoed in the hall, and I stood as still as ice, without waves. It wasn't until he choked up with exhaustion and tears in his eyes that I slowly spoke. Zhou Yeni, you said you remember everything. Then do you know? In our past life, did we have a child? He suddenly froze, his pupils trembled violently, and he looked at me blankly. I looked at his instantly bloody face. It was you who imprisoned me in another garden because of Jiang Lingyi's death. It was you who connived at my subordinates to humiliate me, and it was you who. I ended its life with my own hands. It disappeared silently, and I can no longer have children. We are separated by a small life. I don't think he wants to see you and me entangled again. Child. Child. Broken syllables burst out of his throat, stumbling against the pillar, his body sliding down the cold too, curled up to the ground. Holding his head tightly with both hands, a suppressed, beastly whimper squeezed out of the bottom of his throat. I took one last look at him. Take care. The two words fell lightly, and there was no more nostalgia, turned around, and resolutely stepped out of the side hall. Hulian was already standing in the twilight under the corridor, with fine snow on his shoulders, and his eyes were locked on me. I walked towards him and raised my hand to brush the frost off his shoulders. He wrapped his warm palm tightly around my cold fingertips with his backhand. Solved? He asked lowly. I leaned towards him, it's all over. He didn't say anything more, he just squeezed my hand tighter, took off the thick cloak, and wrapped me up. The wind and snow are heavy, return to the palace. After that night, Zhou Yan repeatedly did not appear in Nanzhao. Later, sporadic news came that he had a serious illness, and after recovering, he became taciturn, only devoted himself to military and government affairs, respected Jiang Lingyi like ice, and never took a concubine again in his life. The night in Nanzhao is still cold, and the wind and snow are still fierce. But my heart is deeply rooted in this land. Many years later, on the same snowy day, I closed my eyes in Hulianyi's warm palm and passed away peacefully. This life begins with a wrong marriage and finally comes to fruition. The princess of the Jing dynasty is also a name, and eventually became a totem of peace in Nanzhao province. The fate of being sacrificed blooms with a meaning that transcends marriage. I have fulfilled Zhou Yeni's perfection, and I have also created my own regret-free return journey. The wind and snow have not yet stopped, and spring is still promising.